I didn't feel joyful. I was scared. I was afraid. And it wasn't anxiety. They were like panic attacks.
Yeah.
Which are different.
Goldie Hawn, the woman whose laughter once defined an entire generation, built her career on joy, light, and the magic of old Hollywood. Yet now, at 79, she is finally breaking her silence and revealing the 6 actors she secretly despised. They once called her sweetheart, America's angel, and praised her every move. But behind closed doors, they whispered that she was greedy, fake, and overrated. Goldie never forgot those insults. She quietly vowed she would never work with them again. And when you hear their names, you begin to understand how much pain was hidden behind that perfect $1 million smile. At the top of that list is Bill Murray, a name that still carries the sting of humiliation for her. Of all the people she crossed paths with, Bill Murray hurt her the most, not with a scandal, not with a feud, but with a single moment she could never erase. It happened during what was supposed to be a fun, lighthearted table read for a late 1980s studio comedy. On paper, pairing America's sweetheart with comedy's most unpredictable wildcard seemed like a dream. But within minutes, everything collapsed. Bill Murray walked in an hour late, loud, messy, and utterly unapologetic. He tossed a half-empty cup of coffee onto the script pages and smirked. "Now we can start." And in that moment, Goldie Hawn understood exactly who she was dealing with and why she would never share a set with him again. Goldie Hawn looked at Bill Murray, and in that instant she felt something dark forming in the room. As the table read began, she delivered her lines with her usual warmth and rhythm. But Murray cut her off mid-scene, smirking. "Why don't you try acting like you've done drama before?" The men around the table erupted in loud, cruel laughter, everyone except Goldie. She quietly closed her script, stood up, and walked out without a single word, a silence more powerful than any argument she could have made. By the next morning, her team informed the studio that Goldie Hawn was out in a statement. No explanation. She simply removed herself from the project. "He thinks unpredictability is genius," she later confided to a friend. "I think it's exhausting." That moment changed her entire career. From then on, she avoided volatile creative geniuses who confused cruelty with artistry, turned down male-led comedies, refused to babysit egos, and chose peace over chaos. And years later, when asked if she would ever work with Bill Murray again, she answered with calm finality, "No interest." The next name on her secret blacklist was Warren Beatty, and his story was pure Hollywood vengeance. It began with one simple word: no. That single refusal was all it took for Warren Beatty, the era's most powerful, irresistible leading man, to turn against Goldie Hawn. In the late 1970s, at the peak of his fame, he decided she would be his next conquest. He invited her to dinners, to private parties, to his Beverly Hills home. Everyone knew what those invitations meant. But Goldie, ever gracious yet firm, didn't play the game. The moment she didn't melt under his charm, his mask slipped. And the man who was used to getting everything suddenly became someone she never wanted to see again. Almost overnight, Goldie Hawn began to notice doors quietly closing around her. Scripts she had been promised suddenly vanished from her schedule. Directors who had once been enthusiastic disappeared into silence. And one producer even warned her privately. "Warren Beatty says, you're difficult, not serious material." It wasn't loud or public, it was subtle, calculated, and designed to wound without ever being traceable. "He doesn't handle rejection," Goldie confided years later. "He punishes it." Those 6 words explain everything. Because what began as a simple refusal became a vendetta that shadowed her through much of the early 1980s. Warren Beatty's influence was enormous, and he used that power mercilessly. Goldie never confronted him publicly. She let time speak for her. But years later, at an awards show, fate put them face to face. Warren Beatty, smiling like old Hollywood royalty, leaned in to greet her. Goldie looked him directly in the eye, gave a sweet, polite smile, and turned her back mid-sentence. That moment said everything she had never bothered to say out loud. Next on Goldie's silent blacklist was Dustin Hoffman, the audition that shattered her respect. To the world, he was a genius, but to Goldie he became something completely different. What happened wasn't gossip, it was humiliation. In the early 1980s, when Goldie was ready to shift into serious drama, she was invited to read opposite Dustin Hoffman for a prestigious role. Everyone expected sparks. What they got was cruelty. Halfway through the scene, Hoffman stopped, looked at her with a cold expression, then turned to the producers and said, "She's still playing it like a sitcom." The words struck her like a slap. Goldie didn't react. She finished the scene with quiet, flawless control, thanked them all, and walked out before anyone could try to soften the blow. The next morning, she called her agent and said flatly, "I'm out. I won't fight for respect in a room full of men who already decided I'm a joke." From that day on, she never worked with Dustin Hoffman again. And later, when asked about the experience, she responded with a single, razor-sharp line. Some men forget they're not directing the women around them. If Hoffman thought he had exposed her weakness, he actually exposed his own arrogance. But perhaps the most painful friendship-turned-feud came with Chevy Chase. Number 4, on her silent hate list. Goldie once told a friend, "If I ever have to smile next to Chevy Chase again, I'll quit Hollywood." That's how deep it ran. Back in 1978, Foul Play looked like a dream pairing Goldie as America's sweetheart, Chevy Chase as comedy's rising king. On camera, it was magic, but behind the scenes, it was chaos. Chase behaved like he owned the studio, mocking lines, rewriting jokes, derailing scenes, and sulking for hours if Goldie got a bigger laugh. And when she did, he'd mutter bitterly, "She's lucky to be here." Goldie tried to hold the peace, joking, smoothing tensions, but the cracks only widened. One night, after a fierce argument about a scene, Chevy Chase stormed off and refused to return until the director rewrote it. Goldie stayed behind, sitting on the steps, exhausted. "He's not funny when the cameras stop rolling," she whispered to her stylist. "He's just mean." By the time filming wrapped, they couldn't even look at each other. The studio begged her to sign on for a sequel, millions on the table, but she didn't hesitate. "Not interested," she told her agent. And that was the end of Chevy Chase in her world. By the time she reached number 5 on her silent blacklist, Goldie Hawn thought she had seen every shade of arrogance Hollywood could offer, but nothing prepared her for Sean Penn, the man whose insult she never forgot. This wasn't a private feud or an on-set clash. It happened under chandeliers in front of an entire ballroom. It was 2014, at a Malibu charity gala where Goldie had been invited to give a heartfelt speech on mental health, something deeply personal to her. The room fell silent as she began, everyone listening, everyone except Sean Penn. From his table, he rolled his eyes loudly enough for half the room to hear and muttered, "Another celebrity wellness sermon." But when Goldie finished, receiving warm applause, Sean Penn leaned back, smirked, and delivered the line that would carve itself into her memory. She should stick to giggling. Goldie didn't flinch. She simply smiled, raised her glass, and left early. Sitting in the car, afterward, she finally whispered, "My whole career, and I'm still reduced to giggles." That was the moment she drew her final boundary. From that day onward, she refused to attend any event where Sean Penn appeared on the guest list. And years later, when asked about him, she didn't hesitate. "Not my energy." She wasn't angry anymore. She was done. The final name on her list shocked even those closest to her. Kirk Douglas, the legend who made her feel invisible. You'd expect her last grudge to be against a rival or another loudmouthed comedian, but no, it was Kirk Douglas, one of the most iconic figures in Hollywood history. It began during an industry panel in the late 1990s. Goldie attended as an Oscar-winning actress, producer, and respected figure in her own right. Kirk Douglas, already revered, greeted her with a grin, kissed her hand, and said, "You haven't aged a day, sweetheart." The audience laughed. Goldie smiled politely. Inside, it landed like a bruise. As the discussion unfolded, Kirk Douglas interrupted her again and again, finishing her sentences, correcting her points, and making sure every moment spotlighted his authority, not her experience. The moderator later admitted, "You could feel her frustration. She went from glowing to stone cold." Afterward, Goldie told a friend, "He talks to me like I'm still the blonde in a bikini scene. I've won an Oscar." That summed up everything. She remained friendly with Michael Douglas, whom she often praised as a true gentleman, but she never spoke of Kirk again. "Some men," she later said, "don't deserve a second act in your memory." And that, perhaps, is the cruelest part. Kirk Douglas never even knew he was on her list. Now you know the truth behind the golden smile Hollywood adored. But which of these 6 names shocked you the most? Do you think Goldie was right to stay silent all those years, or should she have exposed them sooner? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and return for more Untold Hollywood confessions.